This is a Fatal 4 podcast.
Shuffle those feet from side to side. It's time for Squared Circle Strafe, the premier video game podcast of the Fatal 4 podcasting network. I am your host, Pro Wrestling Noah, aka Noah Stewart, and it's time to talk about video games. Hello, everyone. I hope your week is going well, kicking it off with some video game podcast goodness. Hopefully, I can deliver that for you here. I have had a pretty good weekend. Went and saw a movie, as I usually do on the Friday. Haven't gotten a chance to go see Beetlejuice yet. Might see that this week with the wife. But I did go and see A24's new horror thing, The Front Room, which is upsetting. I think that's the intention behind that movie. But imagine the kid from the Babadook, but like 100 times worse, and it's an old lady. You kind of get the idea. It's unpleasant. I wouldn't say it was bad. It was just unpleasant, which again, I think was what they were going for. Also, speaking of wife, she got a COVID booster, which I have also been spending a lot of this weekend taking care of the side effects from that. The roles might be reversed there in a week or two. Let's see about that. But where I will be doing the same and might need some taken care of as well. But it's just been a lot of nice, just like hanging out, watching some movies. Been getting into it's spooky season. Been getting into my spooky season viewings. I'm doing a lot of zombie movies this year. Saw White Zombie, Night of the Living Dead, all sorts of good stuff planned there. Also, quick disclaimer for this week. Speaking of things I got into this weekend or lack thereof, I know. Everyone online is freaking out about it. I know it's Astrobot time, but I had to make some budgetary decisions. I have not gotten Astrobot yet. I am dying to get into it, but instead I am actually, as of this recording, I'm recording this on Sunday. I am going to go see Childish Gambino here in town, and those tickets are about as expensive as Astrobot, so I had to make some choices. But though that's the choice I'm making, but you'll probably hear me talk about Astrobot in like a week or two, just whenever more income comes in. But I'm very, very excited to get into Astrobot. But enough about me. Let's get into some news. And of course, oh boy, the big thing that everyone is talking about this week is the unfortunate closing down, going offline of Sony's Concord. Which is funny because we were talking about it last week. How unfortunate Concord's numbers had been, and then I believe it's like 11 days after its launch. As of this recording, it's already offline and went offline, I believe, on Friday, September 6th. Concord is no more. They have taken it offline. They have ended sales for it. Actually, just let me go ahead and read this from the PlayStation blog. Says that while many qualities of the experience resonated with players, we also recognize that other aspects of the game in our initial launch didn't land the way we'd intended. Therefore, at the time, we have decided to take the game offline beginning September 6th, 2024, and explore options, including those that will better reach our players. While we determine the best path ahead, Concord sales will cease immediately, and we will begin to offer a full refund for all gamers who purchase the game for PS5 or PC. If you purchase the game for PS5 from the PlayStation Store or PlayStation Direct, a refund will be issued back to your original payment method. So that's unfortunate. I do appreciate that they are doing refunds that, because they, you paid for a game that ostensibly does not exist anymore. So yeah, you'd hope that you get your money back. But man, just this whole saga, I am fascinated. I want to see whoever ends up writing the book on the whole Concord situation. I will be there day one to read that book, because this is all very fascinating to me. This game it allegedly spent like 8 years in development. Maybe not like active development. Maybe like a lot of those beginning years were just a lot of like kind of pre-production development of like just like really nailing down what the thing would be in the first place. I believe this was a team, Firewalk, the team that developed Concord, was spun off of Bungie and was like one of their like incubation projects, where it was just like a lot of, trying to figure out like, hey, like what is something that we want to do. And when Sony bought Bungie, they kind of spun them off and like put full budget into making Concord. Obviously, because Sony is was, we'll see about the fallout of this whole situation, very interested in live service games. And obviously the inspiration for Concord being Overwatch / other, hero-based shooters like that. But yeah, just it's so many things about Concord just feel like too little too late, whether it be the trend of hero shooters kind of being over, we all know how Overwatch is doing these days. Not like it's doing fine, but not amazing. Just the like obvious inspiration of Guardians of the Galaxy, which like the height of that craze is well over and done now. And of course live service, which I talked about a lot last week. That there's not enough space. There's not enough space for all of these live service games, and especially like just even Sony itself. Like they had the Naughty Dog Last of Us multiplayer shooter that got canceled mid-dev because they just couldn't. They weren't happy with how that was shaping out. They still have Fair Games, which is a like heist shooter that is like supposed to be games of service. It's like the guys in the monkey masks. If you remember seeing that trailer, that's still in development. I'd be very nervous if I was those devs right now. And Marathon from Bungie is still in development, which is, I believe, is supposed to be a kind of like Apex Legends like, trios based battle royale situation. But yeah, it's a really crowded market right now for those types of games, and I don't see massive success for anything new really coming out now for that. So I don't know. We'll see how Sony feels about that strategy going forward, especially after the success of Astrobot this week. That was like critically like 10s across the board, like 10s and 9s. Just that thing is reviewing like it is almost guaranteed to be in at least the top 3 contention of Game of the Year this year. And I believe the sales, I haven't seen hard numbers, but I believe they're doing pretty well, which if you look at the sales of Concord, reports saying that it sold about 25,000 units, which is a disaster. Like, that is so sad, especially for how much money went into developing this thing, which I assume is also why they had to make the decision to shut it down so early after launch, because they looked at the numbers were not there, and how many servers that they had to have dedicated to it for what I assumed they thought was going to be big numbers, because it's a first party published hero based shooter, like online multiplayer thing, and all of those servers cost a lot of money to maintain, and there wasn't a lot of action going on in those servers, so they just had to. That's my assumption. I don't have any, like actual hard evidence on it, but I'm assuming that is a big contributing factor as to why they had to shut down so early. But yeah, it's just what a garbage fire in flames disaster, which is and from what I understand, the people that played Concord liked Concord. Like, it wasn't a bad game. It was, maybe derivative of, games that came before it, but it played well. It's from the people that made Bungie, so they know how to make shooting controls feel good. Just everything about, like, I never felt like anything about Concord was really attention grabbing. Like, other games like Overwatch, or even like, Marvel Rivals is a hero shooter that's seen a lot of success right now, but obviously it has the success of the Marvel IP to kind of ride off of. So at least like that is doing enough to get people in the door for that. But also like the character designs they did for that game, even though they are already Marvel characters, which already have like great silhouettes, they still made them look dynamic and interesting for like, the updated designs they did for that game. Concord, just go look at a character page. It has almost none of that. And there's people who will make the argument that it failed because of, DEI or whatever. Like, I'm not even interested in that conversation because that's not a conversation that's based in reality. But just look at the character select screen and just like, is there anything that catches your eye? And I've seen character like concept art, and the concept art is interesting. The concept art looks good, but for whatever reason, when they brought them into 3D, like finished out these character models, I assume it was probably some sort of executive decisions looking at stuff and kind of sanding down the more interesting parts to make it more general audience. But man, no riz, no charisma, nothing interesting going on with like the design of a lot of stuff in this game. So yeah, unfortunate. And also the players, what I heard from people playing, or like people seeing people play the game, is that there wasn't a lot of energy in those last couple days after they announced that it was going offline. A lot of people were actually starting matches and just jumping off the stages in an attempt, because apparently that was the fastest way you could earn experience points, and everyone was trying to get the platinum trophy before it disappeared, which is so sad and hilarious. And then of course there's will this game come back? The way that they made their statement made it sound like, oh, we're going away, and we're gonna retool, really focus on what we want to deliver to players, and that's not unheard of. Like, we all saw what happened with Multiverses, where they went offline for I think like about a year and a half, almost 2 years, and then they came back, and the crowd kind of went mild with that one. Like, I think like people went back to it, and I went back to it. I reinstalled it because they had Jason Voorhees as a playable character that I think you got for free if you had played the initial beta, which I had, so I got him for free, and I love my boy Jason Voorhees. But and that game kind of had its own other issues. I believe what people didn't like about the initial beta launch of that game was that the controls felt way too like chaotic and slippery, and so when they brought it back, they were like, okay, we like slowed everything down, it's a lot more deliberate now. And then everyone was like, yeah, no, this isn't good either. It's like sluggish and like input laggy feeling. And I think like the only company, or the only, like, as far as platform fighters go, the only people that have really been able to make that fan group happy, because that player base is they're very particular about their Smash Bros like, they are particular about even Smash Bros itself. Like there's, people who are divided amongst people who like Ultimate and people who like Melee. And the only other games that have been able to like kind of satisfy those fans is I think the Nickelodeon one people like fine. And then Rivals of Ether, which has its own dedicated following, which is that like indie platform fighter with all the beasties, and it's like 16-bit art style. But I digress. There are games that have gone offline and come back, not always met with the best results, but I just don't know with Concord. I don't know if I see it. We'll see. Like I don't know what you can do really to make people interested at this point. I mean, there were like funny, people going out and buying the physical copies just because they wanted a piece of history of a game that doesn't exist anymore. And I think also people were like, well, like that controller, the Concord controller looks, still looks cool. Maybe I'll go get that before, they really stop making those. But yeah, what a weird whole thing. Oh, and right, the secret levels, that Amazon anthology animation series with all the video game shorts, they're still doing the one for Concord. There's still that's going to be included in the programming for that, a short based on Concord, which is going to be really awkward when that comes out and there's no game to promote. So wow, what a pour one out for your Concord heads out there. If you know any of them, give them a hug, buy them a cup of coffee. They're really going through it. Rip Concord, but maybe we'll see you again another day. But I'm shaking my magic 8-ball over here, and chances are not likely. Speaking of unfortunate things happening to developers, Rocksteady, the people who brought you the Batman Arkham games, was hit by layoffs this week, unfortunately. Eurogamer reports that they had a QA department of about 33 members, which has been sliced down to 15. And Warner Brothers is citing the poor performance of Suicide Squad Killed the Justice League as a reason for its quote-unquote restructuring. Also, there were job losses outside of the QA team as well. One person said that they were found redundant in the middle of their paternity leave, which is brutal. But yeah, so just more evidence of, mismanagement by Warner Brothers, which, is not a story exclusive to video games. All the stuff going down with Warner Brothers Discovery and the streaming stuff and all the movies and all that. But yeah, apparently it was reported that Suicide Squad Killed the Justice League, they are saying it was responsible for like a 41% fall in the like gaming department of their revenue this past year, which lost them about $200 million, which is brutal. But I think is also, between this and Concord, I'm hoping will be a like real wake up call for, industry executives at large to be like, hey, like even if you have a successful IP to base your thing off of, there's no guaranteed success with the games as service model right now. Like it's a huge gamble, and when it doesn't work out, so much goes into making games like that. I mean, you kind of saw this with massive MMOs around, like the post World of Warcraft. You saw a lot of people making MMOs not taking off, and then those companies just disappear. So yeah, it's rough times out there, as we keep seeing teams either get laid off or just completely shut down. So, hope everyone affected by these layoffs land on their feet. Rocksteady has said that the loss of half of their QA team will result in, lesser quality of their product. So hopefully, Rocksteady's able to, steady the ship, pun intended. But yeah, we'll see what happens with Rocksteady. Speaking of people leaving companies, but in this case, in a, kind of more upbeat note, Hideaki Itsuno of Capcom is leaving Capcom. He was one of the lead devs on stuff such as Devil May Cry 2 and 3. Most notably, the creator of Dragon's Dogma for Capcom. Most recently, Dragon's Dogma 2 that came out this year. And he's leaving Capcom, saying that he wants to start developing a new game and a new environment, which good for him. Dragon's Dogma is like such a weird, unique thing that had there is a dedicated following of Dragon's Dogma sickos out there that love that thing, which is kind of sad that it seems like Dragon's Dogma 2 was probably the last hurrah for that, which from what I've heard from the people that enjoy Dragon's Dogma, that it is a very good one of those. And I don't know, maybe wherever Hideaki Itsuno goes for this, new development that he's working on, maybe it'll be something along the lines of Dragon's Dogma. At the very least, whatever it ends up being, I'm sure that dedicated following will follow him to whatever that project is. So good luck to Hideaki Itsuno. This is a quick one, but just something worth noting. Balatro, however you choose to say it, is coming to phones. It's coming to mobile platforms. This was announced. This from VGC. It was announced that Apple Arcade is getting 8 games this month, including Balatro Plus, and also Balatro. I believe you can also buy as its own standalone thing on those markets as well. It's also coming to Google Play Store, the Android platforms and whatnot. But yeah, this is bad news for people who enjoy walking around outside and enjoying the sun and being in nature and not trying not to be distracted by their phone, because this is a good way to always be distracted by your phone. This is coming especially good for me as someone who recently has dropped Marvel Snap as my kind of go-to while I'm standing in line. Let me get a quick card game in situation. And Balatro, I assume, will be a perfect replacement for that need. So that is coming out September 26th. Balatro coming to mobile. And here's something puzzling, I will say. Here's some puzzling news. During an interview with Financial Times, Sony CFO Hiroki Todoki says that they don't have enough IP. Specifically what he says is whether it's for games, films, or anime, we, being Sony, don't have that much IP that we fostered from the beginning. We're lacking the early phase of IP, and that's an issue for us. And it seems like the reaction to this online has been a lot of, what the heck are you talking about? Especially after the release of Astrobot, where it's just like a nonstop love fest love letter of PlayStation as a brand and featuring all of these IPs that they have. It's crazy. It's crazy to say that PlayStation doesn't have enough original IP because there's so much of it. There, just recently there's, The Last of Us and freaking Horizon Zero Dawn. But I think the issue that they're having is that a lot of the stuff that they're finding success right now is stuff that is not like incubated within Sony. Like, you know, they have Spider-Man, which is really successful for Insomniac. There's, you know, all the Final Fantasy stuff, which is attributed as, you know, a like PlayStation, that like you buy PlayStation to play Final Fantasy games, but you can find those games other places, and it's not, you know, wasn't made by Sony. But like throughout its whole history, like each PlayStation console, I feel like it can be defined by a group of like system mascots. Like PlayStation 1 had Crash Bandicoot and Spyro the Dragon. I would argue Croc. Tomba. I want to live in a world where Parappa the Rappa made it past the PlayStation 2 era, and we still got Parappa the Rappa rhythm games. Crap, damn it. Of course, Kratos from God of War. All the fun stuff on PSP, like Patapon and Loco-Roco. Sackboy, maybe you've heard him or heard of him. He's, you know, kind of the like cuddly little platformer mascot before Astrobot. There's, of course, all of the, you know, Japan Studios stuff, and like all my favorites from Team Ico, like Ico, the boy, the horned kid. You got Wanderer from Shadow of the Colossus. You got the kid from The Last Guardian. Just all that stuff. Jak and Daxter, Ratchet and Clank, Sly Cooper. I'm so mad. They have so many things. Twisted Metal, which, you know, they have on Peacock for their TV series, so at least they're doing something with that. Gravity Rush, Infamous. Everybody remember Infamous? Kind of left that franchise to, you know, flounder on the PlayStation 4. Anyways, they have so much stuff. Medieval. What's his name? Dan, the Skeleman from Medieval. Ghost of Tsushima, which I think they do plan on doing some other stuff with that. But yeah, they have a lot of stuff. It's weird to say that they don't have a lot of stuff because they have so much of it. So weird complaint. Totally. Bloodborne, people are so mad that they never want to do anything with Bloodborne. They have so much stuff. Weird to say that. But Sony does still plan on celebrating themselves as a brand, because in like some actually like kind of pretty cool news, this coming from Video Games Chronicle, PlayStation is doing a 30th year anniversary celebration. They're doing a bunch of different stuff. They are bringing soundtracks from games to Spotify and other streaming services for the first time, like God of War franchise and Twisted Metal, Starhawk, Unit 13. All those are coming to streaming services. They're also doing like themed playlists, which I think I definitely want to check those out on Spotify. Then they also are having a collection of like physical products that they're calling the Shapes of Play, which they're saying are crafted by the team behind the design of PlayStation consoles, giving you opportunities to create fun moments with our iconic shapes. They're doing 3 things, one of them being a board game called Shapes of Play Battle, where you can challenge a friend to line up 4 different shapes of the same color on a board to win. They're doing a thing called Shapes of Play Create, which is a kind of like little magnetic block set where you can make a bunch of different shapes, kind of like tetrominoes, if you're familiar with those, kind of like a 3D tetrominoes, however you say it. And then a series of objects called Shapes of Play Recharge, which appear to be like stress balls and little fidget toys and stuff. I, as a PlayStation fanboy, I am kind of a sucker for like the aesthetics of the PlayStation. So this is some stuff that I could get behind. I am interested, especially those little fidget toys, as I am, I'm interested in collecting more and more little fidget toys for my desk at work. I would like to have some little PlayStation themed little things around. It'd be nice. So yeah, PlayStation 30th anniversary celebration, gonna be like towards the end of September. I think is when they're kicking all that off. So be on the lookout for that. Then this last bit of news, the Switch 2, the successor to the Switch, is claimed to have backwards compatibility, which is great news because Nintendo has not always been the best at that kind of thing. Like the Switch obviously didn't have any kind of backwards compatibility with its previous consoles. Of course it was, going from disc to cartridge. That was maybe a little bit understandable. I'm glad that they're doing this because the Switch obviously has a huge install base that I feel like if you were to ask people to buy, hey, like here's basically an upgraded version of this thing that you already have, but it can't play any of the stuff that you already have, like that would be a pretty like big, like people would not be happy with that. There's an industry insider, Nate the Hate, who, according to him, says that it has backwards compatibility. Yeah, good news for that. Well, that's it for the news. Why don't we take a quick break, and when we come back, I'll tell you about what games I've been playing this week. See you then. All right, we're back. Let's talk about some more video games. The game that I have been playing the most this week is Star Wars Outlaws, which I feel like amongst the Fatal 4 people, at least, me and Paul, is like game of the week for sure. Been spending a lot of time with it. I'm about 10 hours in right now, which I think maybe I'm not as far as I could be because I was doing a lot of like the side content in the like first kind of major area that you get to be in. I just got off of Toshara, which is like the first, like, because you start in Canto Bight is like the little tutorial level, and then you get to go to Toshara, which is where they really, things expand. You start getting more abilities. They really kind of introduce you to the like the, what do you call it, the different clans, the different like crime organizations system, where you have your reputation amongst the different crews, like the Pikes and the Crimson Dawn and the Hutts, and you, as you are kind of doing missions in this place, whether that be like main quest missions or side missions, your reputation and respect between all these different factions are going up and down. Right now, I think I am most aligned with the Pikes, which I was kind of against at first because the Pikes, which like has this like Fishman as their boss, is kind of set up as like, oh, they're like, the crime syndicate who's like top dog in charge of at least Toshara, and the so I thought like, oh, I don't want to go with the big dogs. And like in the main story, the Crimson Dawn kind of approaches you and is like, oh, like, like, well, we can help you out. But then on one mission, they kind of like make you make a decision between the Crimson Dawn and the Pikes of like, oh, like the Crimson Dawn could sell you out because you have a death mark, just like bounty on your head, that, they could sell you out at any time. So what if you went with the Pikes? And I went with the Pikes, and I think it's working out. I don't know. I feel like that's really mostly just role playing, is, choosing which organization you choose to be the most reputable with. I don't know if there's like an optimal choice to make there. Like I want to get in good with the Hutts eventually, just because, you know, they're recognizable. Jabba the Hutt's cool. The guys, the like henchmen, all look pretty neat. They hang out with the Hutts. But yeah, anyways, I'm having a good time with Star Wars Outlaws. It did not get the best reviews. I think it's like sitting at around like a 76 or something like that on Metacritic. It seems very divisive, which is understandable because at the end of the day, it is a very, you know, Ubisoft stealth game, where I feel like when you say Ubisoft game, most people these days would think of something like a Far Cry or like a later stage Assassin's Creed where you are climbing a bunch of towers and getting a bunch of stuff to pop up on your map and you go, you know, clear out bandit camps and stuff like that. But I would say that this is more like an early era Assassin's Creed game in that you're doing a lot of stealth. If you get into a situation where you have to do a lot of combat, it's not really the best. Like going loud is not, like most of the time is not the best option. There is like some, you know, going around the open world, but it's mostly just to get you from, you know, one major area to the next major area. There's not a ton of stuff to do in the middle, like in between those spaces. Like there's maybe like as I'm making my way from one place to the next, there might be like a little notification that pops up like, oh, there's, you know, a group of people over here that are, you know, being attacked by pirates, or, oh, there's like a stash of stuff over here that the Empire wants to take over. So there's like a shuttle landing down of a crew of Imperials wanting to go get that stuff. And then you can like go over there, take out all the Imperials and then get all the stuff, which is like, you know, not the most interesting stuff, but it's like nice little emergent stuff that makes you feel kind of cool running around on your speeder. But I feel like I'm kind of getting more of a handle on the stealth. I was kind of having some like frustrating situations with the stealth when I was first playing it. But as your abilities kind of expand, as you know, play more and more of it, get more resources to unlock more stuff in the, you know, the skill tree, basically, the stealth becomes a lot more manageable. There's a cool like fast talk mechanic where if you are seen by at least like one guy, you can, you know, use your what do you call it, scum and villainy, you know, kind of rogue-ish tactics to like, hey, like let's just talk this out, like I'm sorry, I'm here, blah blah blah, and then you can like very quickly either throw down a smoke bomb or like hit him with a stun gun or something to, you know, keep your stealth status. And it has that kind of Ubisoft stealth thing where you can, you know, be hiding in the grass and then whistle so that, you know, like one person is kind of alerted to your presence, but not like totally yet. So you can kind of like lure them into the grass, do a stealth kill, and do that to like a whole crowd of guys if you can manage to do that before moving on. And a lot of stuff like even your little pet Nyx, which is like a little like fuzzy oxalotl looking space thing. You have a lot of build abilities with them where you can have them distract dudes and sneak up behind them, or you can have them like if you're in the heat of combat, you can have Nyx like get on someone's face and like completely subdue them. So kind of like take that person out of the fight so you can focus on other people. Nyx can go and like fetch items for you and hit buttons on the other sides of doors that you can't reach. There's a lot. You have a lot of options in, you know, the stealth or combat situations, which is nice. And like I've said last week, just everything about the setting feels so Star Wars. Just like it is very immersive in how very Star Wars it feels. And even like I got to the part where I'm flying the ship around now. You can do like some space combat stuff. I'm now on Kijimi, which is a like frozen planet. And in order to get there, you have to do hyperspace. And it even does the little like you have to hit both thumbsticks forward, and it says "punch it" is the notification that comes up for that controller input, which everyone's always wanted to punch it and go into hyperdrive. So lots of fun stuff there. I'm still enjoying. It's still the game that I feel like I am mainly playing right now. It's the game that when I'm itching to play something, I want to reach for Star Wars Outlaws right now. And it being a big like kind of open world Ubisoft game, I was kind of worried that it was going to be this big like 40 to 50 hour commitment. But I looked it up on how long to play, and it's a critical path is only about 17 hours. And I think like completionist, which is doing all the side content and stuff, it's only about 30. I'm just getting to the part now where I am assembling my heist crew, which I believe I assume kind of like the third act of the game will be pulling off this big heist on the main bad guy. So right now I'm kind of like in the second act of the game, kind of assembling my heist crew to go do that. But I don't know, I'm having fun. It's not the most amazing game. It's like a solid 7, which Star Wars has a history of solid 7s that are just like fun to play because it's Star Wars, So yeah, I'm gonna be playing a lot of that until as soon as I get my hands on Astrobot. Oh my god, am I gonna play so much Astrobot? I'm very, very excited for that, and that also doesn't seem like a totally super long game. So I'm sure like I'll have my huge burst of fun with Astrobot and then go back to Star Wars Outlaws if I haven't completed it by the time I get my hands on Astrobot. But yeah, and I'm sure I will eventually get Paul on this podcast one way or another to talk about Star Wars Outlaws, because I'm sure we have a lot to talk about there. But that's mostly what I've been playing. So the other thing I've been playing, just kind of dipping my toe into every once in a while, is Resident Evil Revelations. And I'm playing the Steam version, but if you remember, this is a, what is it? It's like over a decade old. This game came out on the 3DS originally. Then they ported it to consoles and PC, but it's Resident Evil Revelations, which is the game that came out between Resident Evil 5 and Resident Evil 6 and was supposed to kind of be the explainer for what Jill Valentine was up to before and during the events of Resident Evil 5, kind of explaining how she got to the point in Resident Evil 5 where you have a boss fight against a mind-controlled version of her. And this game is... I think I was expecting to like it more because control-wise, it seems most close to Resident Evil 4, that kind of like over-the-shoulder, aiming kind of thing. And it is like that, but it also kind of does the Resident Evil 5 thing where you can move around and aim at the same time. You're not, planting your feet every time you're taking aim. Inventory isn't as complicated as 5. But this started because they did Revelations 2 as well, and that I believe that was kind of similar in that Revelations is episodic. Like they split the levels up into these episodes. And they each at the beginning of each episode, they have like a previously on Resident Evil Revelations and give you like a whole, synopsis of what's happened up to that point. And I think they did it like that for handhelds because it was, a handheld game so that you could kind of split it up into those like smaller bite-sized chunk levels so that if you're playing it out on the go, you're not, committing to like a 40-minute long level that you then have to, I have to, quit out of this and come back to it, and who knows where it's saved or whatever. And then Revelations 2, which was a console exclusive. Like it came out on console and PC. I think it was PS4 eras when that came out. I remember that the whole thing with that being episodic was that Telltale games were really popular then. So they were releasing chapters of the game. I think there were like 5 chapters that they released, and they were releasing them episodically every week. So that like they were expecting people would play through that whole chapter and then talk about it and then wait for the next chapter to release. Which I'm sure people did that, but I don't know if it was like a huge, mainstream thing that people were talking about. And now, of course, now you can just buy all those and play them all in one chunk. But, Capcom always doing fun, different stuff. But Resident Evil Revelations, as I've been experiencing it, it's been very okay. I feel like there's a scanning mechanic in it. Think kind of like Metroid Prime, where you have like your little visor, you bring it up and scan stuff in the environment. And that was cool in Metroid Prime because you had like a whole codex of things that you were filling out, and it kind of felt like a collectathon kind of mechanic. But in Resident Evil Revelations, the main purpose of it seems to be either like, oh, here's like maybe a little bit of a lore, but not really, of like, oh, like this, there's this little like creature carcass, or there's a stain in the corner or something. But it seems like the main purpose of it is to find hidden items in the environment, which are like literally invisible. Like they just aren't present in the environment unless you scan them, and then it shows up as a little like shiny blip in the environment. And I've had a couple. There was one boss fight encounter specifically with, I believe her name is Rachel, which is like this, monstrous zombie lady that I used all of my resources on in one go and was not able to kill her. And I needed to kill her for that encounter. And I had to do it again and kind of like be very strategic with my resources, and still only came out with like, I think like 4 bullets left by the end of that encounter and all of my grenades. And I think the issue I'm having is that I'm not using the scanner enough to find hidden resources. So maybe I'll start doing that more as I keep playing it. But I feel like that it's just not super fun using the scanner, which I think is also why I'm not doing it as much. So we'll see about that. But mostly playing as Jill, I guess, like, or at least early off. They also have like some flashback scenes where you play as Chris for a second, and then like these 2 other like BSSA weirdos. Yeah, it's interesting, but I was expecting to like it more, again, because I thought it was going to be like a lot closer to Resident Evil 4 in gameplay, and finding out that it's just kind of fine. I'm kind of making my way through this era. I didn't play a ton of this era of Resident Evil, like Resident Evil 5, Revelations, 6. I've heard 6 is bad, but I'm still interested, and I have a copy of it on Steam, so gonna check that out eventually. But it's spooky season. I thought it was time for a fun Resident Evil spooky situation. I'm also hopefully sometime I want to play Castlevania Symphony of the Night. I've played other Metroidvania style Castlevanias before, especially on Game Boy Advance with like Harmony of Dissonance and Aria of Sorrow, but I've never played Symphony of the Night, and I feel like that is a huge oversight. That's a huge hole in my catalog of games that I've played. So I want to rectify that, and I always think about doing it around Halloween, because that's obviously the perfect time to play a game where you are a vampire man fighting Frankensteins and werewolves and stuff. But I always end up like being way more into movie mode around Halloween. I usually end up playing way more games or watching way more movies than I do end up playing games, which maybe with this podcast, it might, give me the inspiration to play more games like that. I don't know. We'll see. I'll let you guys know. I'll do a podcast about it. But that is all the games I've been playing this week. So why don't we take one more quick break, and then when we come back, we'll have another segment. And we're back, and now it's time for the Strafe Shuffle. So, you guys see that Minecraft trailer? For the Minecraft movie is what they're calling it. And boy, what a weird thing. I think as of I am recording this, I believe the YouTube video has surpassed 1 million dislikes on it, which is, I mean, so the thing I keep seeing people say about this is that, like, it's obviously it's a movie for children, which is fine. There should be movies for children. But also, like, this thing just looks so ugly. Like, just looking at it, like, it's just the most obviously all filmed on a green screen studio, just slop. And also, I mean, if you've seen Jack Black as Steve, it literally just looks like he rolled out of bed and they put a blue shirt on him. That's like, it just looks like Jack Black in a blue shirt saying, hey, it's Steve. And it's just, obviously, all the like recent stuff surrounding Jack Black. It's interesting seeing him in this. Also, this is something that I didn't know until I looked it up, that Jared Hess is directing this. The guy who brought us Napoleon Dynamite and Nacho Libre, which I guess explains the Jack Black connection. But also, Jason Momoa is in this, looking like he does in this movie with the weird, like, bob cut, which when my wife was telling me that when she saw it, she didn't even recognize him until we were like, oh yeah, that's Jason Momoa. Like, wait, what? Just crazy. I don't know. This thing, it's going to have the most, groaning kind of, like all ages humor of the like, oh, he's standing right behind me, isn't he? Like, that, all that stuff is going to be there. There's going to be really obnoxious needle drops. But again, I'm not going to try to get too mad about it. It is a movie for children. But just couldn't it have looked better? I'm just ultimately, okay, hang on. Before I get to that, it could look better. Like, why isn't it animated? Like, why is it seems like they're kind of doing the Jumanji situation where people have been Jumanji'd into Minecraft and they meet Steve, and I'm sure there will be, there's some kind of crisis that they have to save the Minecraftiverse or whatever. I don't know. I've heard from people on other podcasts who have children that said that they showed their kid the Minecraft trailer and they were going nuts, just so excited about like every little detail, which is, that's the reaction you want. That's the reaction you want. Hey, it's nice to have a movie for kids to enjoy. I just wish it wasn't so ugly. But again, not a movie for me. But I guess where I ultimately end up landing on it is that I hope that the kids who watch this movie will end up having the same reverence for it that I do for Spy Kids 3D Game Over. Because that is a movie that is very similar in the ways that it was shot in, you know, the very kind of goopy green screen zone. But I think Rodriguez was kind of going for that anyways, you know, because it takes place in the 3D, in the video game world, which like this does too, but also kind of all those Spy Kids movies looked like that. But I think it was a very specific aesthetic that he was going for. But what I mean to say when I hope that kids find the same reverence for this movie that I do for Spy Kids 3D Game Over is that it's a movie that I find deeply nostalgic. I watched that movie so many times with the 3D glasses that I got in the DVD. I think mostly because I found it novel that I could watch a 3D movie at home. But I still recognize, and I think even then recognize, that it was not a very good movie, but it just had a lot of stuff in it that I liked and thought was fun, even though like the story was not good. And now I especially can recognize that like, oh yeah, that's not like the height of cinema, but it's still a movie that gives me, you know, warm nostalgic feelings because it's like a thing that I spent a lot of time with and feel very deeply about, in the same way that, you know, kids very obviously feel very deeply about Minecraft. And I think like, weirdly enough, Jack Black too. I think the kids really like Jack Black because he's appeared in enough, you know, all ages stuff recently, like whether that be Bowser or I think just like showing up on Nickelodeon in various, you know, ways, or even just like his presence online. I hope the kids have a good time with it. Everyone who's, you know, all those 1 million dislikes, like I doubt one of them ain't me. I do not have the energy to go dislike a YouTube video, you know, unless it's like something that is like from a creator that I actively don't want to see. I will dislike a video, but like I'm not going to go dislike the Minecraft movie trailer. That's a waste of time and energy. Everyone who's mad about this movie maybe find something else to do. There's more other stuff that's worth being mad about than, hey, the Minecraft movie looks like it's not going to be entertaining to me, an adult man. But that's all I have to say about that. Thank you so much for listening to Squared Circle Strafe. Leave us a nice review on Apple Podcasts if you like the show. You can follow me on twitter.com @OozingNeon if you want to catch me, if you want to catch more of me talking about some real nerdy stuff. You can follow the Did You Get All of It podcast to hear me and the rest of Fatal 4 hosts talk about the latest and greatest in professional wrestling. You can also sign up for our Patreon to get exclusive access to our Discord, as well as bonus content and the satisfaction of supporting independent podcasting media. Head to patreon.com/Fatal4Pod. That's Fatal, FOUR pod. Thank you again for listening, and as always, enjoy your gaming.